We're still talking money. It's my favorite topics on the show is money. Bitcoin, now equities. Starting the week on a positive note, the Nigerian stock market was up by 0.14%. That was as of yesterday. Trading has started as we speak. So far this year, 30.23%. So as we close out 2024 and look to 2025, which sectors should we be looking at? Who better to answer that question than Muktar Mohammed, CEO of Finance with Muktar? Good morning to you, sir. Thanks for joining us. So
you are. I like your haircut.
You like it? You're inspiring me. You're welcome, sir. Good morning. So you are a traditional equities man. So what do you make of the returns or performance you've seen on this and the NGX so far this year?
I think that's the only success story.
Avi?
As far as administration is concerned.
Yeah.
Economically, they can only tell you that go and look at the NGS, look at what it has gained.
Yeah.
Just like what Trump will tell them in his election. He said, look, if you want us to win, if you want to enjoy the kind of return. So I think President Tinubu can tell anybody that if you want to take my performance economically, go to the NGS. I think the NGS has performed credibly well this year, no matter how it ends in a very volatile, harsh economic situation. We've seen, like you say, the return of almost 30%, and we're still ongoing.
Yeah.
So I think people could say, oh, it did not beat inflation. But again, when you look at a return of 30%, you're talking about the NGS. But there are some equity that have done better than that, over 500%. Some equity, you could go on and on. Some equity when they started the year, where they were and where they are today, and there's still a lot of potential. A lot of room
to go. What is? I may have asked you this question before. What is your reply to those who say, okay, well, the returns, the 30% returns are in naira, and that's if you were to convert to dollars, the story would not be the same. What's your reply?
With the exception of, I heard you talking about the Bitcoin. With the exception of Bitcoin, tell me which return in the international market has given you 30%.
Right.
I mean, any market. I mean, let's be sincere. Let's look at it critically. Tell me one stock in America that is listed today that has given you a 30% return, or the S&P 500 that they've been able to give you a 30% return. So you're looking at international stocks, and like you said, we've said this thing before. If you are just keeping your dollars there, I think the highest rate you can get for your dollar as it stands now in America is about 3 to 4%, beating up, and they tell you beating inflation.
Right.
Some people have not asked themselves, why are the foreign investors like coming to Nigeria? Why do they like? Why is CBN putting treasury bill, fixed income investment at 22%, and they are all rushing, bringing in their dollars? So sometimes people looked at this thing, and the only time I keep saying it, the only time you think you have made value from your dollars, sometimes when you convert it back to naira.
Right.
That's when it makes that, you've made so much huge. But if you look at the dollar, then you're talking about 3 to 4%. And if you are going to spend that in America, then definitely you beat inflation. So, but if you want to convert that to Nigeria, you say you've made huge returns. So I still say, which international stocks have done so well? Like I said, the exception of Bitcoin. So,
Gotcha. Okay, let's get into sectors now. Starting with banks. 2024 was the year of recapitalization, getting to the 1 trillion economy. If we can get there by 2030, a lot of banks were doing, a number of programs in order to raise the threshold to get there. What have you made of the banking sector on the NGX in terms of banking stocks?
I think it surprised me.
Yeah.
When you look at history is that when you have this year of IPO, public offer, you normally see a slowdown in terms of price movement.
Right.
But what we've seen this time around is we've seen it's a lot of capital appreciation in terms of price movement in the banking stock. And what's shocking is that normally, again, after the end of a public offer or an IPO, you normally see the retreat in terms of price going backward. But this time it seems like after the end of it, you saw price going forward above the offer price. So, or the right price also. So I think they've shocked me with that. But again, it's not so much something that we're shocked because in terms of preparation, but we're not shocked in terms of performance. If you look at them, they've been one of the best performing sector in the NGS in terms of profit, in terms of capital appreciation, in terms of dividend payout. Most of them, especially the tier 1 bank, with the exception from First Bank, most of them have given 100% return in terms of dividend payout compared to what they paid the previous year. So definitely, and in an economy when you have challenges,
Right.
liquidity becomes king. I think the banks have provided this liquidity for investors.
Solid, solid. Let's go to oil and gas. We saw Aradel coming on to the exchange listing this year. Oil and gas has been a big topic with respect to Nigeria trying to raise her output, production, and so on and so forth, even on the globally with everything going on. How have you assessed the oil and gas stocks on the NGX?
Shocking.
Yeah.
Performed shocking. Yeah, Roto, sometime last, I think when we were around sometime, you asked me, what do you think of Owando? I said, no, just guys, you don't, the corporate governance.
Yeah.
And at that time, Owando was selling for like 8 naira.
Right.
When we're talking here, we're talking about would they be in the market, would they exit the market. Today, Owando has made over 600% in terms of return.
Correct.
So, so you could see those are some of the shock. You have corn oil all-time high.
Yeah.
You have Seplat, the most expensive stock in
over 5,000
over 5,000
naira.
So and then you talk about also Aradel that just came in now. You saw the slowdown that happened when it was listed at 702 naira. Then it went as low as 375 naira. Today they started the upward rate, closed yesterday at 553 naira. So definitely you see that sector still has a lot of opportunity. If you look at the Owando template, is that they want to make sure that they produce 100,000 barrels per day. And the interesting thing about the oil and gas sector is that you are beginning to see Nigerian companies beginning to take hold of that sector. Seplat is a Nigerian company buying up asset of Mobi. Owando is a Nigerian company buying up asset of Ajib. Aradel also is looking towards buying some asset also, even if we are still waiting under the Renation Capital Group. Even if we are still waiting for the federal government to give them approval. Yeah. So you begin to see the oil and gas sector, which is the life wire of the Nigeria economy, beginning to take center stage in the exchange. And that's good. And when you look at that, also don't forget the internal oil also is there also.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a lot of opportunity in the oil and gas sector. And going forward, we think that's the sector that will take Nigeria. Aliko Dangote has promised us that most likely, first quarter of next year, the refinery will be listed in the exchange. Also, NNPC, let's not just...
They should list as well.
They say they should list next year. So a lot of big things are coming up in the oil and gas sector.
Indeed. In fact, on the front page of today's This Day newspaper, the Dangote refinery is on there as well, that arrangement with Ipman. Infrastructure. Talked about the Tinubu administration, all their plans. That is part of the plans of every new government coming in. What about industrial stocks, industrial goods, the cements and so on and so forth?
The cement has done well, but again, you see the challenges, the FX challenges are still there. So really eating deep, we are not seeing so much activities in those companies because of the FX challenges. But in terms of profit, they've returned considerably good profit. But again, they have those challenges of FX, bringing in their machineries, high exchange rate. And you see that it's Dangote that perform well. And if you look at that result, you realize it's a subsidiary that are outside the shore of this country that have done very, very well, in spite of the construction infrastructural, what we are seeing. Ordinarily now, what we are seeing is that, again, the minister seems to be constructing a lot of roads using cement these days. And so that is another advantage to places like Dangote, Lafarge. Also, Lafarge did very well in their results also. So there's a lot of activities going on in the industrial sector. But for now, it's still a major challenge because of this FX volatility. But in terms of long term, there's a lot of long-term prospect there. Hopefully, we should see the Naira stabilize to the dollar.
I'm running out of time. I have to quickly jump ahead of consumer goods. Maybe we'll have you on. What's your outlook 2025? Do you see more macroeconomic stability in 2025? And what does that mean for stocks?
We could see a lot of micro stability. One of that would be the stability of the exchange rate, which we think will happen in the first quarter of next year. And that would drive in foreign investors. They want to come to Nigeria, but they want to come up when you have a stable exchange rate. I keep saying, Rutos, that the market has a life of its own, but there comes a time that it has to take the life of the economy. And so this market has performed very well by taking a life of its own. By 2025, if the economy performs well, we could see one of the biggest bullish run we've seen in the history of Nigerian market. Don't forget that the banks also will be listing almost all their right and offer, a lot of liquidity, a lot of expansion, and then a lot to their bottom line. The oil and gas sector, we've talked about it, it will also be a major player. The industrial good, expect stability in the exchange rate. Don't forget the telecom sector also.
Yeah, I was good. It's just a big,
big challenge going on there, but there's a big opportunities for those that want to think into the telecom sector. MTN Nigeria selling at 52-week low. That's a big stock to begin to look
jump
at,
in, yeah.
to jump in. So there's a lot of opportunities for Nigeria coming the coming year, and hopefully this microeconomic headwind will be settled. And then the first place to benefit is the stock market. And when the first place to suffer is the stock market.
Muktar Mohammed, CEO of Finance with Muktar. Always a pleasure talking stocks with you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, always.